Hey guys, I'm going to do a video on doing P-pump timing with a stock gear. I have done one with the adjustable timing gear, but this is going to be stock style. I got an engine sitting on the floor. It's the old test mule, I guess you'd say, or breakdown. This is the engine we've used for a bunch of stuff. But anyways, we'll get after it here. So, just wanted to show you guys that aren't familiar. Imagine a lot of you guys will be, but so in here, right there, you can see the timing pin. This right here, I'm touching with the flashlight. That is your timing pin to set the engine to top dead center. And this is the easiest way to set top dead center. You don't have to do it that way. There's a couple different, you can do a drop valve method, which maybe I'll do another video on later. Then if anybody that's wanted to know, if you wanted to pin the pump, that's the plug for pinning the pump. And I do have, I think I showed that in another video. But you pull that out and there's a plastic pin that you flip around, get the pump in the right spot. That's not, I don't set timing like that. That'd be if you were setting it factory, or just get yourself out of bind, I guess. But anyways, so this engine that we're working with here is out of a 94. It's a 49 state 160 horse engine. First thing you need to do, I guess I've already had the intake horn off, but you need to pull the intake horn off. And it's going to go there. Usually it's going to be, there's a bolt that holds your dipstick tube right here. 4 bolts and 5th bolt here. Your intake horn will come off. Now you'll have to take this clamp off, which is 7/16 or 11 mil. Something I would recommend when you get this off is to take a rag or I use nitro gloves is usually what I do. I don't wear nitro gloves, I just use them for covering over shit. But I take those, stuff over the intake horn, and then if this is fixed, either way, you should cover this over with something, whether it be a rag or a piece of cardboard or whatever, just to, which is your intake heater, I should say this is your intake heater. Also make sure if you have this that you hook this back up afterwards, you ground for your intake heater. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Now there is also, because I was monkeying around with this thing yesterday, there's this clamp that holds the injection lines. Usually goes right there, 8 mil bolts for that. Pull that off. And then what you can do, if you loosen your number 1 injection line, pull that off. Usually these are going to come off real easy. This engine's really crusty, so everything's kind of, I've had this line off once already, and I still can't get it to do everything I want here, but just tucked it over away. Now, I don't recommend trying to bend these lines, but you can, I don't know if you'd say, it's not bending it out of the way, but you can flex it out of the way. So, and you can do this and hold it up out of the way. You can, I'm sure you could use a zip tie, wire, bungee cord when it's in the truck, do the exact same thing. But like I said, you don't want to bend it, but flexing it won't hurt nothing, and I've done that lots of times. Another option too is that you can pull these 3 lines off. You undo this bolt right here, and these 3, if everything's clean, you know, or not rusty as bad as this one is, you can just pull that off. Lots of times I'll do is this one's super rusty and crusty, and I want to do a couple more videos on this engine before I tear it apart. So I don't want to break a line or something and have to screw around with it. But so now at this point, you need a timing kit. The timing kit that I use is one that is from a company that actually isn't in business anymore, but that's or I shouldn't say in business, he doesn't make this stuff anymore. So that's the timing kit that I have. It's just an old, you know, it's just a P-pump timing kit. Now, what you need to do is you need a delivery valve socket, which is in that kit. It is just like a splined nut socket. You want to make sure too There again, I've had this apart, but you want to make sure that you get this area in here cleaned real good. You don't want dirt going down inside there. Like, you want it as clean as possible. So, you know, brake clean. You know, brake clean it out. Shoot a little brake clean in it because it has sat for a couple days. And you want to get that clean. Get it, all the crap and corruption. You don't want the crap and corruption going in there. So, anyway, so what you're going to do is loosen that off. It's good and tight. Something you want to be careful with is that there is a spring and some stuff on the bottom of this. So, pull this out. There's the spring and the I don't know what you actually physically call that, to be totally honest with you, but there's the spring delivery valve spring, and then there's a puck, and I would imagine it's just a distribution puck that maybe mitigates the amount, how the fuel flows. But there, on this one, not all of them are like that, but this one actually has 2 shims in there, and then your delivery valve holder, or nut, I guess you maybe call it. There's so many different terminologies for that stuff, not technically, but that people call it. But anyways, just want to make sure if you don't want to lose this. If there's shims on here and you lose a shim, don't put it back together. You're going to have somebody go through the pump and reset everything, because it will not run properly if you do. So, anyways, that being said, pull your delivery valve out. I just do it with a magnet. You can pull it out. Make sure your magnet's clean. That's one I use all the time, so it's clean in my pocket. But there's your delivery valve. So your delivery valve holder, technically, and delivery valve. These are just stock 131s, I think. Yeah. So what you do is this tool now is going to thread inside here. And we're going to see what the timing is set on this thing. I don't know if anybody's ever been into this. So to start with, all I'm going to do, so to start with, you just want to make sure that you have engagement, some engagement down, so that you're going to take this off top dead center, which I know that it is on top dead center right now, but you're going to want, what you want to do is you want to bring your pump down to base circle. So you're going to rotate the engine counterclockwise. Say we're at base circle there right now, and we know that's at base circle because it stopped spinning. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this up a little bit. So let me tighten that up, bring us into 0. Now what I'm going to do is now I'm going to bring it back to top dead center. And this is where that pin now comes in. You're going to take the pin, and if you push your hand on the pin and you move it, there. So yeah, I don't know if you guys heard it click or not. So that's top dead center right there. Sometimes, they get stuck in there because you get a little bit of load on them. Oh, there we go. And you just sometimes have to move it, wiggle it back and forth a little bit. But anyways, the engine back and forth, I guess I should say. So now right now, I've already monkeyed with this thing, so I kind of already know what's going on. But let's say right now, we have no idea what we're at for time. So right now, this engine is timed at, so knowing it's a 160 horse pump, we are timed at about 18 and a half degrees, which is actually quite a bit of timing for this thing. That's what it's timed at. So now if we want to, let's say, we're gonna say retime this engine, and you want to be, let's say 17 degrees. So 17 degrees, what we'll shoot for is 260 thou lift. So, and how we know that we're at where we are for lift, so we started at 0, so our 0 mark was 100 thou. So we went twice around plus 70, and maybe even 73 thou. So we're a good 18 and a half degrees, if not close to 19 degrees. But let's say we wanted to turn it down to 17 degrees, which is 260. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna back the engine until you get at 260. Now, if you're using a barring tool, this is actually a little tiny bit easier, because these things can be a bit finicky. All right, so there's 260. So what we've done now is you just back it up until you get to your 260, or roll it ahead to 260, depending on, you know, usually you're going to be low in timing, not high in timing. So let's say you're usually going to be going up to your desired amount of lift that you want. So this is, you know, this is where you want your pump. You know, what we're going to have to do, and this is the part that sometimes can be a bit difficult, is we need to, now usually this cover is going to be on here. Usually this cover is going to be on here, and this is all you're going to be able to see. But just for this instance, it was easier to show you guys with the cover off, and I had it off already. So usually, but the tool and everything fits in there. So, and you know, if you're doing this in the truck, then it, you know, you're not usually, unless you happen to be doing killer dowel pin fix or a front seal or something like that, then, or you're doing an actual engine repair. But so this nut's a 30 mil nut. What we're going to do here is we're going to pull this nut off. Oh, and that's actually something right there. I should show you guys. This sometimes will happen, and this is the reason that you want to replace these washers. That washer just broke in half when I pulled it off. Meaning pull it off, just loosened it. So that's the reason that I like replacing the washers and the nuts. You don't have to replace a nut all the time if you don't want to, but it's not a horrible idea. But that right there is the reason. So if this was to drop in there, you're at the very least, you're pulling your front timing cover off to fish that out of there, because you do not want that in there. It's like a killer dowel pin. You don't want that in there. So that's beside the point for what we got going on here. And what we'll do is, this is the puller that we're using. This is the one that comes in the kit. Now I will be putting one together for you guys with some snap-on parts, and then some parts that I've gathered for doing it, or stuff, I guess. Now, and you can buy these kits from all over the place. I'm going to offer them for the guys that are asking, because I have had people ask. I just haven't got to the point yet where I have the parts, all the parts to do it. So this is the tool, and comes off. Now they usually don't come off that easy, but this one did. So now usually the gear is going to be held in there, right? So by your case. Now, something you do need to do, well, what we'll do first here. So what we're going to do is we're going to back this. You're going to want to bring your engine, because right now your engine is going to be off top dead center. So you need to, I'm going to say the engine, I had to roll back because we weren't that far off. But what you need to do now is bring it back up to top dead center. So you put your finger on that pin, or have a friend do it, or whatever. I missed it. That is one thing. There we go. So it's in right now, so that's top dead center. So now what you do need to do, and what I recommend doing, now like I said, usually this is not going to come off that easy, but you're going to want to, well, this is in there like that. You're going to want to take brake clean, and you want to clean all of the oil out of there, because you want that taper to be nice and clean. You want a nice dry clean taper. Now there again, if the cover's on, you can't wipe it, but you can brake clean it in there and then take compressed air and blow it with compressed air, get it dry. So now we're at top dead center. You do want to make sure you pull that timing pin back out. That one does not want to move very easy. But you want to make sure you pull that out. I'll be right back. Just got to go over a new washer for that. So here's the new washer. And I was actually talking to one of you guys, Jeff. We were talking about doing some stuff on a P-pump. He's going to do some hot rodding on his truck. And he was asking about, I said, yeah, it's a good idea to change it. So there you go, Jeff. That shows you right there. Good idea to change it. You are definitely on the right track. Because that first hand you get to see, they break. Not always, but they do break. Now, torque sequence on this, you're 165 foot-pounds for your torque. For this instance, I'm just going to tighten it, but because this is just a test mule. Now there again, make sure I haven't pulled the timing pin out. And the reason I haven't done it yet is because I didn't want to monkey and move anything till I tighten this nut. But I'm just gonna, there we go. Sometimes the pin kind of gets jammed in there because you get it moved a little bit. So now you want to do a verification. You're gonna bring it back down below base circle. I know we're at base circle because it's not moving anymore. We're still at our 100th thou. Now we're just gonna bring it up. And then we're at top dead center. And like I said, you're gonna want to push your pin in there. Make sure you're at top dead center. But I know we're at top dead center. I can tell by the marks that I have marked there. And, or very close. Close enough for what we're doing here. You want to push your pin back in. Make sure you're at top dead center. We're still verified at where we want to be. And sometimes you'll do this and it'll fight you sometimes. So sometimes you might have to do this once or twice, sometimes 3 times. But just make sure you take your time, get it where you want it to be or close within a couple degrees. Especially when you get into higher degrees, then yeah, you want to be pretty much on. But if you're in your range, relatively stock motor, if you're between, let's say 16 and 17, even 15 to 17, you're in a good range. Sometimes up and down it does make a difference, but you get in that range and it makes a big difference. But so, like I said, 165 on your gear. Now, being that we know where we are here, we're going to pull this back out. Now, something else that I have is this little guy here. And what it is a pump nut. And what I do is if you're setting it up, you get your top dead center set. You pull your nut and washer off, get gear off, and then I actually set the pump timing with this, so you can basically, it's a jam nut. So you can get it set, so then you can say, oh, I want 17 degrees. You can turn your pump to 17 degrees and then let it off, clean it, tighten everything down, verify, but then it just saves you having to rotate it back and forth to get where you want your timing to be set on the pump. So I will offer these probably with my timing kit. It'd probably be nicer than this one. This is one I made a long time ago, but something like this, it is super handy. I think it's super handy. I use them all. I use it all the time. Pull that back out. Like I said, you want to make sure all this stuff is good and clean when you're putting stuff back together, because you don't want dirt in there. Now if you do, you want your delivery valve, now something else, and this one actually is a perfect instance because it's actually got a cut in it. But you can see that O-ring is split. And what it does is it's because this gets walked up there usually when you're threading it out. So if you're doing timing, especially if you're planning on doing it a few times, I would recommend getting a bunch of these washers. They're not that expensive because if you don't have it, they don't leak, like pour out fuel, but they'll seep for sure. So it's a good idea to have some of those washers if you plan on doing it. And I think maybe when I sell the timing kits, I'm probably going to supply, you know, maybe 6 of those washers just in the kit, just so that you have some. And you want to lube that washer, or O-ring, sorry. Like I said, when you go to put that in there, make sure that you're super careful that you don't drop all that stuff in there, because if you do, it's a bad day. Especially if you don't know how much, if there was 1 washer or 2 washers. So if you don't know, then you have to pull one of the other ones out and verify, and then that always isn't always perfect. Now, torque on these, you want to do 30 foot-pounds, and then you want to do 85 foot-pounds, and we'll call that 85. There again, test mule, not running truck that I would recommend doing. But, so, just pull that off, and then put your lines back on, or line, if you haven't had them all off. And that is doing your timing. Now, if you got the cover on, this is going to be right here. So you need to take this off, and there's 1 bolt here, and then you unscrew this, and then you can turn, this piece will turn out. And like I said, you'll be doing it through that hole. So that pretty much has that wrapped up. It's really not a hard process after you've done it a bunch of times. Now, something else that I'll mention, I got this one apart, so I didn't have it like that. But what I would recommend, it's not pulled apart. If you have the harmonic balancer on here, what I would recommend, so your cam sensor, or crank sensor, sorry, is going to be like, let's say right here. What I recommend doing, bring your motor to top dead center with your pin, make sure you got it in the right spot. Take a paint marker, you can take a scribe, all kinds of stuff, and mark right where your crank sensor goes. And if you have to take the crank sensor off, make sure you gap it. It is gapped. You want it to be gapped at 50 thou. Now, and then if you mark it like this, when you're bringing everything back to a top dead center, you can just get that lined up in the same spot, right? Now, there is a couple ways of doing this. You can also do a drop valve method for checking your top dead center, which is the most accurate way. And maybe I'll do another video on that later down the road after we get some of these easy ones done. But anyways, that gets the timing all set up. If you got any comments, hit me up below. Like, subscribe. Appreciate the guys that are liking and commenting, and, you know, trying to get these videos out for you guys. And yeah, we'll go from there. Take it easy, guys.